Hi, you guys. I'm Holly, alcoholic. Super happy to be here. OMG. Um, wow. I'm Holly. I'm an alcoholic. Sobriety date September 28, 1996. I do have a home group. My home group is the West Connect group in Jacksonville, Florida. We are hybrid right now. So Monday nights, 7 p.m. If you'd like to come to my home group in the comfort of your living room, hit me up. I'd be happy to give you the codes. I'm hoping that very soon we will be able to go live all the time. I actually went to my very first live meeting at my home group last week after a year of being hybrid because I'm vaccinated, and then I had to wait the 2 weeks and then still masked up, washed hands, went and was really nervous. And when you say your name in an AA meeting, they go, "Hi, Holly," which I about fell out of my chair because I was going like this. I'm very, very used to Zoom. So that was kind of exciting. But if you're ever in Jacksonville and you'd like to come to my home group with me, please hit me up. We'll meet for coffee. I'll bring you to my home group. Love to have you. It'd be super awesome. I do have a sponsor. My sponsor is the amazing Miss Polly P. Of course, she has a sponsor and she has a sponsor, and I sponsor women and they sponsor women. So that puts me right smack dab in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Phil, thank you so much for being in contact, for sending me all the information, for chit-chatting on the phone. Super nice, and it made me feel very, very comfortable coming tonight. So it's an honor and a privilege to be here. Phil was funny because I said, well, what's the format? What do you want me to do? And he said, well, speak 50 minutes on your experience, strength, and hope, or whatever, or pick a topic, or talk about anything you want. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. So I'm a woman, I'm an alcoholic, I'm single, I'm divorced, I'm postmenopausal, and you're telling me talk about whatever I want? Dangerous territory, Phil. So I thought maybe I would just try to keep it simple, and I'm going to really talk about my experience, strength, and hope. And I also want to talk about what the big book says my job is. And that's to talk a little bit about how I found God, my spiritual awakening, with the 12 steps, quite frankly, because that's the only journey, as far as I know, for this alcoholic that gets me to the spiritual awakening. But what that really means to me. And I was praying about it earlier, and I was walking my dog outside before it was time to come on with you guys. And I was thinking about something that Bob B says and out of Minnesota, and I really try not to use people's names when I talk and that, but he's one of my heroes. I don't know if you know him or if you've ever heard him speak, but he's one of those people that when he opens his mouth, God speaks to my soul. I don't even need to write down what he says because it goes past my ears and right in. And I don't know why I walk in my dog. I just was hearing some things that he was saying. And one of the things that stands out for me is that he said when he gives a talk, he used to give a talk, he'd give a talk. And it was that talk, that same talk, just telling your story and giving a talk. And now, and more recently, when I've seen him and I've gone to conferences, and because I stalk him, I think, when he gets to the podium or when he's in front of people, he says, what I really want to have tonight is a conversation. I don't want to give a talk. And I was thinking about that today. It just popped. I didn't even mean to think about it. It just popped into my head. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to have a conversation. I don't want to just give a talk. And a lot's been going on, right? I mean, COVID, we've been reflecting for a year. Maybe I've been reflecting for a year, but I'm a busy girl. I'm the kind of girl to get in the car. I put 28,000 miles a year on my car. I throw women in my car and I go to conferences and I drive. Jacksonville's a very, very big city, largest square mileage city in the United States, just saying. And so it's easy to put a lot of miles in our car. And, Florida has a lot of conferences, a lot of women's conferences. I'm really big on that. I'm a big attender. And like I said, I throw women in the car and go. And so pre-COVID, I'm a busy girl. I'm going. I own a real small little business. So, I have that. I have that work. I have my mom and my stepdad live here. My kids live here. I mean, everybody's grown. I live by myself now, but, they all live close. I'm a family lady. I'm very, very close to my family. So I have those involvements. I just have a lot going on. And then COVID hit and boo, screeching halt to being busy. And the funniest thing is I am still today, a year later, just as busy. I don't know how it happened. The only difference is I'm not putting so many miles on my car. I'm busy here and I'm busy with women and I'm busy on the phone, and it's unbelievable. unbelievable what I've learned in the last year. And I've had some incredible step 10 and step 11 moments in the last few years. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight because that's just where I'm kind of led to talk about. I came into the program originally on February 3rd, 1981. I was 23 years old. My mom had flown me to Houston from New Orleans where I was living. I had been beaten the night before, been out in a bar drinking. Some guy said, you want to go get some kind of condiment to go along with my main course alcohol? And I said, sure. And I left the club with that man and I ended up in a bad situation. And I've been in a lot of those, a lot of bad situations in my day, but this one was a little more brutal than most. And I'd end up out on a dock getting beaten and various things. And, so I found my way home that morning. I got home about 5 a.m. after finding my clothes and putting myself together and hitchhiking home, God knows. And I called my mom, and mom's on her 4th marriage. She's in Houston, Texas. She's a marvelous alcoholic mother, the kind that drinks martinis, cries, and sleeps. So, she came to the rescue and flew me to Houston. And I got to Houston on February 3rd, 1981. And I got off the plane and my mom was 3 days sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And what my mom said to me was, I'm so excited. I'm 3 days sober. Please come to a meeting with me to support me. And she meant it. It was all about her. Thank God. Thank God. And she said the words that saved my life. And I went to that meeting that night with my mom to support her because, she's married to an architect. They have a nice house and a pool. Hello. I want to crash at mom's. So of course I'm going to go. That meeting's not for me. I'm not an alcoholic. No one has ever said maybe Holly shouldn't drink. No, I'm a sociopath. Yeah, I got that diagnosis when I was 14 and I was dropped off at a mental institution for a 3-day evaluation, and they kept me for a year and they let me out at the end of that year. And they gave my parents, my mom and my stepdad at the time, the wonderful news that they needed to make funeral arrangements for me. I was 15. I was terminally insane. I was a sociopath and I was going to die. And that's what the doctor told my parents while I sat on the couch listening. And I finally knew what was wrong with me, because I'd known there was something wrong with me a very long time. So I'm terminally insane. I'm a sociopath and I'm going to die. And when they let me out of that mental institution at 15, I spent the next 8 years hitchhiking around the United States. See, when I drink, I don't cry and go to sleep. When I drink, I travel. I want to see the world when I put alcohol into my body. I was a Michener fan. I'd read most of Michener's novels by the time I was 13. And The Drifters was my favorite. And it's about a group of college students that meet in Europe and travel around Europe hitchhiking. And I wanted to do that. And so you put a little alcohol in my body and off I go. And so I was hitchhiking around the United States from 13, 14, put in the mental institution because that behavior was a little scary for a 14-year-old, and at 15 let out. So that's how I end up in 1981 in a club drinking with some guy in a bad situation, because I was just that's the way I rolled. So I'm at that Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in 1981, and I'm paying attention because I want to know what this gig is my mom's got herself into. And about halfway through the meeting, a little lady started talking about being terminally insane. Yeah, she said she put alcohol in her body, and this crazy woman takes over, takes her places she doesn't want to go, doing things she does not want to do with people she does not want to do it with. And then she said she found out she was not terminally insane. What? She found out she had a disease, and that disease is alcoholism. And she said, if you have that disease, there's a reprieve, because she's in Houston. She says, all you got to do is work these 12 steps and you never got to feel like that again. What? I was sitting in my seat that night thinking to myself, oh my God, please let me be an alcoholic. Oh God, I never wanted to be anything so bad in my life. Because if I'm an alcoholic, there's hope for the first time in my life. Oh my God, at the end of the meeting, they did chips, silver doubloon, desire chip. If you have a desire to give up your way of life and try ours, come and get one. I about knocked over my chair getting that chip. I ran up to the front of the room and I got that chip. And I darn sure admitted I was an alcoholic. Yes, indeedy. On February 3rd, 1981, I traded sociopathy for alcoholism, and it was a trade up. And I dove into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was so excited to be anywhere where people said, keep coming back. Nobody had been saying that to me ever. And I knew there was something wrong with me. There's been something wrong with me. And I want to talk about that for just a minute. See, I didn't think I was a little unique. You know, I'm a Chuck C fan. I'm a major Chuck C fan. You don't know who he is, just a drunk guy from California, right? Just one of us. He just had this eloquent yet simplistic way of talking about his disease of alcoholism. And it was a way that I could relate to. And he died in 1984. But he had given this talk at a men's retreat one weekend. And, you know, they'd recorded it like they do. And then they put that talk down word for word on paper. We'll call that a book, called A New Pair of Glasses. And that book sits on my nightstand with a highlighter. I'm actually going through that book right now with my sponsees on Zoom. Pretty awesome. And the reason I love it so much is Chuck said, I have one problem, just one. And it encompasses all my other problems. And that's a conscious separation from God and mankind. And that I have one solution and that it fixes everything. And it's a conscious connection to God and mankind. And that made sense to me. And it still makes sense to me to this day. You know, Chuck didn't say I'm a little unique or I feel a little different or a little set apart or I march to the beat of a different drummer. No, conscious separation from God and mankind, which is created by my ego, by the way. And that's what he said about me. And I get that. And I think the word conscious is important because I think until I'm conscious of my separation, I'm fine. You know, dip-dee-doo. I go along life and everything's wonderful until I become conscious of my separation. And the minute I do that, I step into what I call hell. And that's the day I need a drink. And for me, that happened when I was 4. Up until then, my life was amazing. I had a great first 4 years. You know, I was raised in North Chicago, little bitty town called Libertyville. Daddy was a prominent surgeon. Mom was a typical alcoholic housewife, drank martinis, cried and slept. She was invisible. Didn't really kind of a shadow in my life growing up, and he was large and in charge, my first God. And I might mention, I remember back to 6 months old, I have kind of one of those kind of memories, just so you know. So, you know, what happened in my household is that I had to run that household with my daddy. That was my job. And my job was also to protect him from the G-men that he believed were out to get him. Oh, did I mention he was also a mainline amphetamine user? Yeah, he got the good stuff that, you know, wakes you up, and he shot himself up with it. And then things got very exciting in my household. And he believed the G-men were out to get him. So when I was 3, he taught me to drive the family Corvette because he told me I might need to get him away from said G-men. So he floored it and said, "You're driving." He screamed, I screamed. But I did learn to drive, and yes, I like fast cars to this day. And when I was 4, he taught me how to shoot guns. He told me I needed to know how to do that to protect him from said G-men. So a lot of neighborhood animals, well, they might have disappeared during my training, but I do not kill animals today, just saying. So the first 4 years of my life, I'm driving a Corvette and shooting guns. Woo! It was fun and exciting. I had a wonderful time. And then I went to kindergarten. Now, I was 4 years old when I went to kindergarten because I was already reading small novels and I was doing the math. I had to pay the housekeeper and the cook and keep track of their hours, so I knew math. So off to school I went. And at 4 years old, I walked into the kindergarten room and I'd never seen anything like it. It was amazing. It was little kid heaven. But there was a problem. The room was filled with other little 4- and 5-year-olds. They were all interacting and playing and laughing and having a good time. And I stood in the doorway and I watched these children, and I had no idea what to do. Absolutely no idea. And if I didn't care, I wouldn't be your speaker tonight. But the fact of the matter is I watched those children play, and I wanted to play too. I wanted to know what it is they seemed to know so easily, and I didn't. And it was in that moment that I crossed that line. It was in that moment that I knew there was something really wrong with Holly. And I needed a drink that day. Badly. But I had to wait a couple of months. When I was 5, my parents had a lot of cocktail parties. I hated it when they entertained. They treated me weird when other adults were around. And so I'm at this particular cocktail party. I have my favorite dress on. No one's paying attention to me. They're not talking to me. I'm feeling very put out by the whole thing. Kindergarten's extremely stressful. I'm having a very bad day. And my daddy says to me, "It's time for you to start serving drinks to our guests." I said, "Okay." I guess because I'm 5 now, I'm old enough to do that. And so I made my mom's martini, big highball glass, whole lot of vodka, a little bit of lemon. We'll call that a martini. And I'm heading across the room with that glass of vodka. And I did what I think all good little 5-year-old alcoholics do. I drank it. Yes, indeed. By the time I crossed the room, I had drank that glass of vodka, and the magic happened for me instantly. It was amazing. You know what happened to me? I connected instantly with alcohol in my body. I loved everyone in the room, and they all loved me. I was articulate. I had marvelous conversations. I was the life of the party. And at the end of that night, I said, whatever that stuff is, I'm going to drink it as much and as often as I could, and I did. Now, I did not drink daily from the age of 5, but I was an adult in this household. I could pour a glass of vodka if I wanted to, so I did. I certainly drank weekly. By the time I was 11, I was a daily drinker. By 12, I was having alcoholic convulsions. And by 13, I was running away from home. Oh, well, let's just say traveling. My mom divorced that man. That's sort of a no-brainer. Moved to another little house in Libertyville, and many years went by. And when I was 13, she remarried a naval officer that believed that the best way to get a kid to listen to you is just beat him up. And so what would happen is I would argue with him, and he would just beat me up. And then I would grab a bottle, hit the door, go get drunk, sleep at a friend's, come back the next day. Well, we left Libertyville because he's in the Navy. We end up in Newport, Rhode Island for some kind of officer's training, and I start running away from home. I was just traveling. I didn't really call it running away, but that's when I started hitchhiking. Now, when I started hitchhiking, I get picked up by the police constantly and brought back home, because when I'm 13, I'm not one of those girls that looks 21. When I'm 13, I'm one of those girls that looks 8. You know, I've always kind of been built like a young boy, you know, unfortunately. Now the only curves I have today are from a very good plastic surgeon in Jacksonville, Florida. But when I was a kid, you know, they just saw me walking down the sidewalk and picked me up because I looked like a little lost child. So they would bring me home all the time. And so my parents were always embarrassed that I'm off traveling around and didn't know what to do with me. So we moved eventually to New Orleans, Louisiana. That's where his final station was in the Navy. And in New Orleans, I began hitchhiking a little further, being gone a little longer, because condiments get introduced into my life. I'm terrified to go to school in New Orleans. I get beat up my first day of school because a very nice young black boy helps me find my locker and stole my books. And I didn't know desegregation was a problem in the school. And apparently that little boy wasn't supposed to talk to this little white girl. And so when I left school that day and got beat up, I thought they just could tell I don't belong. I thought I knew there's something wrong with me. And now at 14 years old, it's written on my face, and I'm getting beat up, and I was afraid to go to school. So I started getting on the ferry and taking it across the river, and it drops me off at the foot of Canal Street, which is the opening to the French Quarter. In January 1972, halfway through my freshman year of high school, I stopped going to school and I started going to the French Quarter. And that's where condiments were introduced, because there were quite a few of them going on in the French Quarter in 1972. And, you know, they had things like 714 stamped on them, or they came in a white powder form. And now I'm a real alcoholic. You probably already figured that out, but, you know, I have to have alcohol in order to connect to the world. It's just that simple. This little lamp doesn't shine until it's plugged in. And alcohol plugs me in. I am connected to you when I have alcohol in my body. So it is necessary. It is an obsession until it has arrived. I get the sense of ease and comfort when it's in my possession. It doesn't even have to be in my body. But once I put it in my body, the phenomenon of craving kicks in, and then we don't know where we're going to wake up, who we're going to wake up with, or what we might be doing. So, you know, there's that. But the condiments, what they did was they helped me drink longer and travel further. So now I'm waking up in places like Iowa. You know, like Iowa is not a destination. No offense if you're from Iowa. I used to wake up in LA, Texas. I woke up in Florida a lot, which is great when you're sleeping outdoors. Florida is definitely the place to wake up. And hence my little trip to the mental institution, because my parents decided at 14 years old, I probably shouldn't be hitchhiking around the United States. There might be something wrong with me indeed. And yes, of course, there was. I was terminally insane. I was a sociopath, and I was going to die. So when I get to Alcoholics Anonymous in February of 1981, I'm excited to be here. People say, welcome. Nobody said that to me for a very long time. They say, keep coming back. Women, remember my name. What? That was actually pretty frightening at the time. but I loved it. And I went to fellowship meetings. I had to find young people. There weren't a lot of young people in 1981 in Houston. So you'd go to a meeting and you'd find one. And then the two of you'd go to a meeting and find another one. Pretty soon you collect a bunch of you and you get in a van and you go out to a young people's conference. They were just starting back then. Everybody sleep with everybody all weekend and then get spiritual on Sunday. It was amazing. You know, it was early sobriety in the 80s and your early 20s. It was absolutely wonderful. Now, in my first year of sobriety, I had been married. You know, I got drunk on tequila one night with this guy that was a friend of a guy I was dating, and whoops, woke up married. So I got divorced in that first year of sobriety. And then I took off. And a year sober, I found myself on the big island of Hawaii on the Kona coast in a little village called Kailua. I followed a guy over there and then, well, that was silly. That didn't work out. And so I was walking down the street. I was 24 years old. I was a year sober. I had the ocean breaking on my left and Maukasai, the mountain, going up on my right. And I was in paradise and I wanted to kill myself. Now, I don't know if anybody else has ever felt like that, sitting smack dab in the middle of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I sure did. And I couldn't figure it out. You know, I'm doing meetings, fellowship. And those are fabulous. They are the substitute for alcohol, but they are not the solution for alcoholism. And I found myself at that crossroad that the big book talks about so eloquently. I could not imagine another day without a drink, and I could not imagine picking it up again. So I went to one more meeting one more time. I asked a woman by the name of Cherie J. She lives in Sacramento, California now. She'll be 56 years sober this summer, and we've reconnected because of Zoom, because of COVID. We text every day. It's amazing. Anyway, I asked Cherie to be my sponsor, and she said, I'll sponsor you, but you're going to work some steps. And my life changed. My life completely changed. But I want to tell you that when I arrived in Alcoholics Anonymous, I was a little girl that thought what I needed was to be loved, that I just needed somebody to love me right. Please, somebody just love me right. Just put your arms around me and tell me everything's going to be okay, and I'll be okay. But what I knew about me and what I had been doing for all those years, you know, because I did run with some pretty bad people, is I wasn't lovable. You know, I didn't know how to sleep at night and get up during the day. You know, I just went until I didn't go anymore. And then I just slept for a little while. And then I got up and then I just went. You know, that's just how you do, you know. And I didn't know how to work. I'd never really done that. I mean, I'd gotten paychecks before, but that's just because I happened to be dating someone that owned a company. You know, like I really didn't know how any of that stuff worked. And so I knew that I was a bad girl. I knew I was a bad girl when I got here, a real bad girl. I know I'd broken all 10 commandments, and I knew, quite frankly, that I had a few left that I would, you know, would like to break again. You know, I didn't really want to be too good, you know, and I read on the board these steps and I see this spiritual awakening stuff, and I don't want that. Do you want that? I was 24. I don't want a spiritual awakening. Ew. You know, like you get your virginity back and then you have to wear turtleneck sweaters and long skirts and carry a big book around with you, which is kind of my life now. But, you know, back then that was not attractive. I did not want that. I wanted to learn from you how to be a good girl, sort of good. You know, I wanted to be lovable. And that is what I believed this journey was about. I believed that the end game of working these steps and listening to your sponsor and doing what they told you to do was that you were going to learn to be lovable. I misunderstood this entire program. You know, people said to me, welcome, welcome. We're so glad you're here. Oh my goodness, we're going to love you till you learn to love yourself. So I thought that's what this was about. I'm going to become lovable. I'm going to learn to love myself. I'm going to be lovable. You're going to love me, and I'm going to be okay. And so I listened, and I did everything you told me to do. Well, everything Cherie told me to do. And I did it mostly because I wanted her to like me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not altruistic. Trust me. I did not want to give back what was so freely given to me. Ew, penance forever. No, that wasn't attractive. But I did what she told me to do because I was afraid she wouldn't like me if I didn't. She kept giving me assignments, so I had to do them. My life changed. My life got amazing. 7 years sober, I moved to Jacksonville, Florida for a wedding. Mine. My mom and the architect, they moved to Jacksonville. They're still married, by the way. Of course, my mom being sober 40 years might have something to do with that. So they introduced me to a coworker of my stepdad's, a button-up sweater guy. Like really, he wore button-up sweaters. I never met a man in my life that owned a button-up sweater. Like who does that? He's just a regular guy, a citizen. You know, he's a real person. And he married me. I couldn't believe it. So I moved here for the wedding. Now he had a daughter and I had a daughter. So that was 2. Then we decided we were going to have children. So we had 2 baby boys. That's 4. I become Catholic because, well, he was Catholic, so why not? And then I start teaching Sunday school at the Catholic Church, and I'm managing a little business because that's what my degree is in. Yes, I managed a college degree somewhere and all that. I don't know how we do that, but I think sometimes we're smarter than we know. And then I joined the PTA, and I'm a member of my community, and I have arrived. Oh, my God, I've been given all these gifts. Look what the program gave me. It works. It really does. You too can have a button-up sweater and a nice job and 4 lovely children. If you just do what your sponsor says, you'll become lovable just like me. And I was so grateful, really grateful and excited. At 13 and a half years sober, my life was amazing. We were buying a new home, selling the old one. So we had just moved everything out. The house was empty. I was cleaning it and bringing the keys to the realtor. Everyone was gone. I'd been working all day and I was thirsty and I grabbed my thermos and it was empty. So I went to the refrigerator to see what might be there, and the only thing in there was a 6-pack of beer. So I just took the lid off my thermos and I grabbed one of those beers and I popped the top and I poured a little bit in that thermos lid and I threw the rest away and I drank it and I walked out of the door and I didn't give it any thought at all. None. Now that day when I opened that refrigerator, I hadn't been to a meeting in 2 years. More importantly, much more importantly, I had not lived in steps 10, 11, or 12 in 2 years. I had not spoken to another alcoholic woman in 2 years. I had not taken a look at any of my character defects that might be blocking my relationships to anyone. And I certainly had not enhanced my spiritual condition in any way, thinking that teaching a bunch of teenagers Sunday school was certainly spiritual enough. I was resting on my laurels, and I had no idea. I was filled with so much gratitude for those laurels that I thought that I needed to focus all my energy on taking care of those laurels. You know, laurels like Michael, my husband, he's a laurel. I had 4 little laurel children. I had a lovely laurel job. I had a lovely laurel position teaching at the Sunday school. I had a laurel PTA spot and a laurel position in my community. Beautiful, beautiful laurels. And it is so easy to get distracted by them. I believed that that was the end game. I'd obviously been doing things right. It's like getting a gold star on your refrigerator. You're doing the program right. Look around you. I had no idea that I had done that. Now, the only reason that I am still here today is that night when I drank that beer, I walked out of the house and didn't give it another thought for 6 months. 6 months later, I was out to dinner with my husband and I remembered that beer. And I looked at Michael and said, honey, you know, when we were moving, I drank some beer. So I guess I blew the whole chip thing, but obviously it's not a problem. So would you mind if I order a glass of wine? Oh, poor button-up sweater. He had no idea. You know, I told him I tried marijuana once and I didn't like it. And that is all I told that man. You know, I was taught in early sobriety, don't do a fifth step with the men you date. So I didn't tell him anything. Now he knew I was in AA and he just thought it was so commendable that I stopped drinking so young. So we're in this restaurant and I order a glass of wine and he thinks it's lovely that I can finally have a cocktail with him. Oh my God. Now, the only reason I am still here today is this. The night that I ordered that glass of wine in the restaurant, at home was the babysitter with my 2 sons. My girls were already grown and gone. My youngest son was an infant and I was breastfeeding. When I was in university in 1978, I did a thesis and it was assigned to me. I did a thesis on the effects of alcohol and drugs on pregnancy and breastfeeding. I don't know why that was assigned to me. Do you? But I did it. And I did a lot of research. It was a scientific thesis. And I know the rules about alcohol and breastfeeding. And not only do I know what they are, I know why they're in place physiologically. So that night in that restaurant, when I ordered that glass of wine, I'm breastfeeding my youngest son. So no matter what, I'm going to obey those rules. And I did. And here they are. If you're breastfeeding, you can have 2 servings of alcohol, not drinks, servings, single shots of hard liquor, 6-ounce glass of wine, or a 12-ounce beer. You can have 2, and then you wait 3 hours. So that's what I did. And I did that for a year. And what that looked like for me is I wasn't going to have a drink until my husband got home from work, not until cocktail hour, no way. So every day I obsessed all day long. When's he coming home? When's he coming home? When's he coming home? I'd beep him. I'd bug him. If he was late on the couch, no sex for you. I mean, it was like a nightmare if he was late. When he walked in the door, I'd hand him a cocktail that he rarely drank. I would take 2 shots of hard liquor because who's wasting their time on wine and beer? 3 hours later, it's bedtime. So we'd go to bed. And I got up the next morning and did it again. It was horrifying. I was obsessed all the time. And after I put those 2 shots in my body, the phenomenon of craving was so strong, I would put fingernail marks deeply embedded in the palms of my hand because I couldn't have any more. I could not satiate the phenomenon of craving. It took a long time for those marks in the palms of my hand to go away. It was horrifying. The day I weaned my son, I had a spiritual experience. It was cocktail hour. It was time for those 2 servings, and it hit me. Oh, we're weaning Jonathan today. First day, no breastfeeding. I don't have any reason to stop tonight. It terrified me. I was filled with a terror like nothing I've ever experienced before or after. And I'll never forget it. My husband walked in the door and I handed him a cocktail and I went to get mine and it hit me. And I looked at Michael and I went, oh my God. I mean, he didn't know what was happening. And I said, oh my God, get it out of here. Throw away the alcohol right now. Throw it away. Get it out. Oh my God, I have to go to a meeting. And I just ran out the front door. Poor guy. He was just standing there with his chin to his chest. Had no idea what just happened with his wife. I will tell you that 3 months later, we separated and divorced. I've been divorced for 24 and a half years. He had absolutely no concept of alcoholism, nor did he have any desire to be married to a woman that was actively involved in Alcoholics Anonymous with those people. So our marriage did not work. It was probably because for the first time in his life, he actually got to see who I really am. And I wasn't his type. Anyway, I ran to a meeting, and when I got to the church, the meeting was a couple of hours later, and I sat on the steps of that church crying, snot flying, and I did steps 1, 2, and 3 immediately. And when the meeting opened that night, I went in and I got the desired chip I hold today, and that was September 28, 1996. And what I did that night, sitting on the steps of that church, was very different than February 3rd, 1981. On September 28, 1996, I conceded to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic. I have the disease of alcoholism. February 3rd, 1981, I admitted I was an alcoholic. Of course, are you kidding? Please let me be one. I traded sociopathy for alcoholism. That was an exciting change. I had no idea the depths of this disease, none at all. I just wanted hope. I bought hope. February 3rd, 1981. September 28, 1996. I bought desperation. Absolute desperation. I cannot outthink, outmaneuver, manipulate this disease. Nope. My disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful. It will get alcohol in my body without my permission. And I know that for a fact because it happened to me. And I never want that to happen again. So you might say to yourself, if you're new, oh my God, that poor old woman. Yes, I'm 63 years old now. I'm sure you did the math earlier. Some of you I lost way back when I said 1972 high school. I know. But yeah, so I gotta do this thing every single day. Bless my little heart. I'm in the South. So, here's the deal. I'm going to tell you why. Why am I excited about that proposition? What changed? And this is it. And it's the secret of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm going to share it with you. I found out about love. The most amazing thing in the world. God doesn't send me memos and I don't hear voices. If I do, it's usually mine, just with a deeper tone. Because, I can be delusional. But what I hear is God through you. And if I want to feel God, I have to love you. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely amazing. I had no idea. I came here and I thought I needed to be lovable. And if I was lovable and you loved me, I'd be okay. Who knew that it doesn't have anything to do with you at all? Nothing. You have absolutely no say-so in my joy and in my life. Nope. What happened to me is I was sitting at a meeting, a couple of years sober this time around, thinking about myself, of course. And then whatever the topic was, I was thinking about what I was going to share on that topic when the chairperson called on me, because God forbid I'm not going to raise my hand, because I need to be called on, and all that. And so I was kind of pontificating in my mind, and I was squirming in my chair a little, so maybe the chairperson would notice me and call on me, that girl. And about that time, some girl raised her hand. Of course she did. And I didn't know her, had no idea anything about this girl. And she started sharing on whatever the topic was, and she was going through some kind of pain, and she was crying and sharing, and I couldn't relate to what she was going through. It never happened to me. I had no idea what she was talking about, but I was listening. I don't know, something she said caught my attention, and all of a sudden a tear rolled down my cheek, and the tear was for her. Like I felt her, I felt her. I felt her pain, and I thought to myself, what is her name again? Oh, I should talk to her after the meeting. Isn't she precious? And I felt love. And it felt amazing. Like really amazing. I felt connected to her. Now don't get excited. It didn't last long. It was fleeting. It was only for a moment. But I noticed it. And it was a beautiful thing. And I thought, that's it. That's what that glass of vodka made me feel when I was 5, just like that. That's it. That's it. I loved her. And it felt good. And it launched me down a completely different path. I had no idea that's what you meant. Now, yes, the book says on every other page, work with others, work with others, work with others, right? Don't have any money, work with others. You want to drink, work with others. Don't have a job, work with others. Not getting any sex, work with others. Getting too much, oh, well, in that case, go have a good time. I don't know if anybody's there. But, it's like work with others no matter what. Work with others. Well, I didn't like that. Work, that's a 4-letter word. But if they would have just said love others, love others, love others. But you know who says that? Chuck. In that stupid book. Just love others. What? And it's amazing. It says in my book, I don't know about yours, but it says in my book, God wants me to be happy, joyous, and free. Yeah. Isn't that exciting? God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. Well, I am here to tell you right now, I am happy, joyous, and free. And I want to tell you what that means to me. First of all, happy. Well, I'd like to say happiness is when I so eloquently line my will up with God's. But really, it's when I get my way, okay? Seriously. When I get my way, happy Holly. Now, I do try to line my will up with God's a little bit more frequently today than maybe I did in the past. And maybe that has something to do with why things seem to go our way. But that's when I'm happiest. I'm happy when I'm getting my way. Happy comes, happy goes. Happy's fleeting, but it always comes back. Joy. Joy is when I touch God. Joy is when I love you. And I started in Alcoholics Anonymous. You're my kindergarten. We're easy to love, aren't we? It's easy to love you. We have a common peril and a common solution. It's easy to love you no matter what walk of life, no matter what voter registration card, no matter what race, no matter what gender, whatever. It's easy to love you. This is my kindergarten. And then I have to go out into the world and I have to love them too. One and all, every single one, no matter what. And when I do, when I fall in love with them, and I first did when I finished my 9th step completely, and I reconnected with God and mankind, whoa! I got filled with joy beyond my wildest dreams. Oh my God, so much joy. I think that's why some people love holidays or birthdays or special times when their loved ones are all around them and they're cooking. A lot of women love to get in the kitchen and cook for their family. I'm not one of those, just saying reservations. But, just want to put that out there. but I love reservations with my family. If you take 2 seconds and you think about somebody that you love, that you really love, and it could be a person, a place, a thing. It could be a sunset in Hawaii. It could be your puppy. It could be your children, your mama. It could be your husband or your wife, your sister, brother, a sponsee, your sponsor, anybody. If you think about them for 3 seconds, just think about them. It puts a smile on your face. It puts a glow in your heart. And in that moment, I touch God. That's what God feels like. And it gives me the power to walk through anything. Now I get it. Why the big book says work with others whenever there's a struggle in my life. Because I need joy to walk me through life. But why does it say free? Happy, joyous, and free. And it says it very late in the book. Are they talking about, freedom from alcohol? That's what I thought they meant initially. No, freedom from alcohol, that's a promise in step 10. So what are they talking about then? And I finally got it. I finally understood. See, you don't have anything to do with me loving you. Not a thing. You can't stop me from loving you. My mama can't stop me from loving her. My ex-husband can't stop me from loving him. Nobody can. But I can. Right here. That's where all the blockage comes. But God in his infinite wisdom gave Bill Wilson steps 10 and 11 to give to me. What? And as long as I am living in steps 10 and 11, I am working on a daily basis to keep me out of the way. And if I keep me out of the way, the bridge stays built and it stays debris free. And I can love you no matter what. No matter what. And step 10 tells me that that's going to happen all the time. Debris is just going to come. I'm going to pull debris out of my bag on a daily basis when these crop up. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Thank God it says when, not if. I'm glad to know that my first thoughts are common. But it's what I do with them that matters. What do I do with them? And what is the price I pay if I want to hold on to those things? And sometimes I do. But what is the price I pay? The price I pay is that I stop the tap of God through me out. I stop that tap. And if I stop that tap and life's in session, I'm in trouble. And how do I know this? I want to tell you about just a couple of lessons and then I'm going to shut up. November 18th, 2016, it's a lot. November 18th, 2016, my firstborn daughter that I had in 1978, my baby girl, beautiful, successful, engaged, planning a destination wedding, absolutely amazing, liked her Merlot, got in an argument with her fiance, went out to the Omni for some drinks, decided to snort a little social heroin that night and died instantly. The drug dealer saw an opportunity. She had a beautiful diamond on her hand, a wallet full of credit cards, so they stashed her body in a seedy motel for 4 days. For us, she just disappeared. We didn't know what happened. We looked all over. We hired a private detective. 4 days later, the drug dealers were done. They dumped her body in the woods behind that seedy motel, and they left the state with her car. It was all over the news that Friday morning. Body of woman found, thrown, and I knew it was her. It was. It's a horrifying experience to go through. Absolutely horrifying. It's not a happy day, might I say. Very, very awful. And this is what I knew. I had the biggest step 10 moment of my life. I know it's me, right? I know it's me when I'm upset or I'm angry or I'm disturbed. And I know that I want to react and I want to separate. But I never knew it to the depths until Casey died. And when Casey died, I realized that I was holding the card of all cards for bad behavior. I didn't have to come out of my house. I don't have to get out of my pajamas. I could say the F word in public. And people would go, oh, honey, it's okay. Alcoholics Anonymous would have wrapped its arms around me and loved me to death. And what I knew in that instant is what loving is all about. And loving is not a noun. It's a verb. It's a verb. And what I knew is that I needed joy right now, right now, right now, or I'm not going to make it through it. And what I need her to know is that I cannot play the dead daughter card no matter what, can't play it. I got to suit up. I got to show up. I got to call my sponsees and tell them, call me. I don't care if your shoelace breaks. Do not use my daughter's death as an excuse not to call me. I needed to go to the speaking engagements that I had, the halfway house obligations that I had. I needed to do everything in motion that I could do. I needed to love my mama, hold her little hand, my other children, get them involved, help them plan the celebration of life. Let them talk about Casey out loud. Don't let her become the white elephant in the room. Love them through it. And I put love in action, and I never lost my joy, not for a moment, not for a moment. A day went by, a week went by, a month went by. It's been 4 years. Unbelievable. It was a lesson. I would have preferred my daughter not having to die for me to learn. I don't think she died for me to learn it, but I have a God that says nothing happens in my world by mistake. So when man does crazy things, God steps in and finds some kind of nugget for Holly. Always. God didn't kill my daughter, but he used her death to open my eyes, to wake me up, and to show me how love works and how important it is. A year ago, my middle grandson passed away 3 weeks after his 18th birthday from a quick onset of cancer. I knew what to do. Didn't even have to blink. Get busy. Go love somebody. My only sibling, my baby sister, 4 years younger than I just buried her in January. She lost a battle with stage 4 breast cancer. She passed away for 38 years sober. That's amazing. I didn't even blink. I loved her. I brought her Starbucks. I carted her everywhere I could until she couldn't be carted anymore. I barely touched sad because she's free and I am happy for her. What I have learned through all of these journeys is that it is me that is in the way of love, that there's a never-ending source, and that all I have to do is tap into it by keeping me out of the way. And the best way that I can keep me out of the way is to know that I don't know anything. I know nothing. And as long as I don't have to have truths, I don't have to judge, I don't have to separate from, and I don't have to burn bridges. Phil, thank you so very much for having me tonight. It's been an honor and a privilege to join you guys. And it was a pleasure to meet you face to face, sort of. Thank you.